Tune into the Donttap Podcast.
Donttap
Podcast.
Donttap Podcast. What we would have called this back in the day was Don't Tap over 1.5. So this would be later in the week, coming in with more props and just some quick hits. But we're gonna go with props with Billy. Props with Billy Briz. We want to more get your take on some of the spots you're looking at. I know it's a little bit later in the week. And if there's any sharp spots that you want to show us or enlighten us with. I'm also I don't want to get too redundant because on the podcast I already sort of put out what my plays were. But as lines are starting to come out, I want to bounce some ideas off of you because I've grown accustomed to that. I think it's sort of been it's a good crutch to have to sort of throw that out there and have things picked apart a little bit so you can maybe clean up the plays a little bit and refine some spots. So I'll let you just take it away, man. What's your first spot? What are you looking at?
Yeah, the first spot that we're going to talk about here is the main event in Grant Dawson and Bobby Green. Excited for this main event, man. This is the typical main event, though, in the promotion that we see with two fighters just going in different directions. Well, it seems like Bobby Green ages like fine wine, though. He's getting better with more experience. His popularity finally seems to be catching up with his personality. But since the Strikeforce merger, it just feels like he's an entertaining gatekeeper in the division. A type of fighter where the younger ones can get a little bit over him and kind of gain his popularity in his fan base. And then when he fights the older veterans in the division, it seems like it secures his place in the rankings. But Dawson seems to clear up his cardio problem that he had with James Krause over his last 3 fights, winning all of them in spectacular fashion over established wrestlers. While this is the striker versus grappler matchup, I think it's going to take some time for Dawson to look like a minus 400 in this one. He isn't going to come out there and do what Islam Makhachev did to Bobby Green on that short notice main event. He's often chaining these takedowns against the cage. And while you could defend the first, second, and third attempt, what about the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the Merab Davashvili style chaining of grappling and stuff like that? I like Dawson to win the fight here, and the time props in this fight feels like a little bit disrespect for Bobby Green. So that's why my first play is fight to start round 3 here at minus 172. The over 2.5 in this fight is lined at minus 130, but I feel a little bit more secure about 10 minutes rather than the extra little other half of the round. So I like fight to start round 3 here at minus 172. And if you're looking for a way to get on Grant Dawson, a way to get on that is one of the FanDuel specials, Grant Dawson and fight to start round 3.
Yeah, to piggyback what you're saying, I think the only question mark that there ever was about Dawson really was the gas tank. And I'm not going to allude to American Top Team and how everybody finds gas tanks down there, but Florida seems to be nice for the gas tank. So we'll just say that, he found his gas tank quick, and his pedigree of wrestling, it's just relentless. His chain wrestling is possibly one of the best. Right up there, him and Malkoun. I love the way they attack the chain wrestling. But I was struggling to find how I wanted to approach this one because the line's a little bit wide. I sort of like him by decision because I think Bobby Green's enough of a vet and off his back can still create enough of a problem, like to just sort of move around and have Dawson sort of float on top quite a bit and sort of not get to a position to get a submission. But then at the same time, like even with a lot of what people are saying and what I've been looking at, and it's interesting, man. I don't know if Bobby Green does sort of give up in this one at later in the fight or not. Maybe 5th round or decision or whatever the hell you could get, or 4 or 5 decision on a book would be something to look at. What line were you saying you wanted to do? What was your play?
Fight to start round 3 minus 172, and then waiting on this one to come out. Grant Dawson and fight to start round 3. Hopefully get it as close to even odds as possible. If you look at this fight, it's lined at 3.5, juiced towards the under on FanDuel at 4.5 at minus 205. So they're expecting the Grant Dawson late finish. So if you're feeling a Grant Dawson by decision, I would want the 4-5 or by decision at plus 145. But I think I'm just going to pay up because I think it's going to be a third. If it's going to be a finish inside a distance, I think it's going to be a 3rd round finish or maybe like a later round finish. 3rd or 4th rounds are going to be the real sketchy ones. If it goes into the 5th, it's probably hitting the judges' scorecards.
And then the other play that we actually put together with Mr. Plus Money and Nick, we put together a parlay. So it's actually Philip Linz to sort of add the value. And then we have Grant Dawson and your boy Joe Pyfer. So a decent little 3-piece right there, I think, with a good hedge at the end just in case. But I mean, I just think Bobby Green's going to have nothing for him. Matchups make fights, and I think this is a stylistic matchup that's going to smother Bobby Green's style and just sort of put him out to pasture. So I'm with you on that. What is your next play, brother? What else do you bring to the table?
Yeah, co-main event, man. You touched on it a little bit here. I like Joe Bodybags Pyfer to win by KO, TKO in rounds 2 or 3 at plus 500 this weekend. Seems like Alisson's best days have really gotten away from him from that sexual assault case in 2020. While he didn't get convicted for the crime, it just seems to take a toll on his mental stability. He hasn't been able to make 170, which is his career best wins / optimal weight class. Historically, he's been a KO, TKO, round 1 or bust, but it seems like he's taken a different approach these last couple of fights, trying to work his way into these fights, not force a finish and try to implement some of his judo game. But it seems like Joe Pyfer would be pretty hip to that, though. It seems like the next step in Joe Pyfer's career, training with the right guys, all grapplers and stuff like that, can only add to his game. The company is obviously high on the potential talent of Joe Bags Pyfer. I mean, Dana White paid for his living expenses all of last year. So, I mean, he's invested in Joe Bodybags Pyfer. And as the Dana White season closes, I could definitely see one of the stars from last season getting another win under his belt. His performance in April versus veteran Gerald Meerschaert really showed that he's ready for this next level. He kind of smoked Gerald Meerschaert, and then his counter partner, Andre Petroski, seemed to somewhat struggle in the later rounds of that Gerald Meerschaert fight. So it showed that Joe Bodybags might be a little bit better than what we thought, even though we don't have a lot of information and film on him. Besides the Chaos Williams round 1 knockout, a lot of Alisson's losses are coming later on in these fights. And Joe Bodybags, while he's known for the big strikes and knockouts, he's more of a sniper. This sniper approach would definitely benefit him here, and I see him getting a later KO, TKO, or a unanimous decision here. So I like the value on the prop. Joe Bodybags round 2 or 3 by knockout plus 500. Rounds 1 or 2 is plus 150. So the odds makers think it's going to happen in round 1, but me personally, I think it's going to be one of those later round knockouts.
I really like that round 2. It's screaming at me. I think that's definitely. I mean, both spots. I think it does happen a little bit later. Even just fight to end. I mean, I'm on the Pyfer side 100%, and I think he finishes this fight likely via KO. The sub sort of scared me because I mean, you throw these little sprinkles of things, little tidbits out there every once in a while, talking about the Philly boys or anybody up in that way, talking about his grappling and whatnot, but. Even fight ends in round 2 is plus 430. Fight ends in round 3 plus 1,000. If someone couldn't pick a side, because I think this fight does end in 2 or 3. Definitely the way to play it. But I'm definitely on the same side with you as with Joe Pyfer there.
Yeah, trying to get some value on a minus 400. I mean, yeah, he's going to be in the parlays this weekend. But the way to even out those type of plays is by betting these round props and being completely right on a fight.
And the one I actually wanted to bounce off of you is one of my main spots. It's sort of the homer play. It's Diana Belbita. I think she has a lot of value as the dog. I just think that there's a sort of inflated streak on the side of Carolina with regards to who she fought with Vanessa Demopoulos. I made a joke about Felice Herrig being 1 foot out on OnlyFans, and she really was. That fight was her retirement fight. That was it. So, I mean, for me, the streak isn't all it's cracked up to be. But that being said, I think it's going to be a very close contested fight. And if you're not on the dog side, what about that spread play? I wanted to see what you thought about that. Diana Belbita with a decent still plus money on her and to get her on the spread money. I don't know if DraftKings doesn't have it up yet, but have you seen any spread plays out there at all at plus 3.5?
Yeah, let me look it up on Bet Online. But me personally, for that fight, it's a conundrum of alternating model consensus from me. The one part of the model says that the younger fighter gives a lot of value here in this spot, but then the consensus, the counterpart that is there's a huge experience gap advantage here on the Carolina side. And then on top of that, with the experience advantage, it's really the film for me that really got me off the Diana Belbita play for me. I just don't like the way she strikes. Granted, like she's going to be a lot fucking bigger than Carolina. Like they're going to look like two different weight classes when they go out there. So it feels like a dog or pass spot just because of the price tag. But I also just don't like the way she kind of reminds me a little bit of Bay Malecki. The way how Bay Malecki would be not as skinny, but Bay Malecki would just tower over these opponents, but just the hand speed just wasn't there for me, and ended up getting bit a couple of times on some Bay Malecki props. But in this particular spot, seems like a fight I kind of want to stay away from. But the spread on this one, 3.5, is minus 260 for Diana Belbita. Fight to go to distance is pretty chalky, so that's probably the reason why it's that.
Minus 260 right now?
On the plus 3.5 is minus 260. Fight to go to distance is minus 350, so I'm not surprised.
So it's either you go for the dog spot or that's it, really. You go for the value on the dog, so I'll stick to my guns on that. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying with Carolina. I just think that there's going to be a high volume kickboxing match that's going to happen, and you're going to see both girls go at it. And I think just 11, I don't normally look at age, but just 11 years younger. I think some of the matchups more recently just make way more sense. But there is also, I sort of shat on Carolina's, 5-fight losing streak, but some of the people she fought are pretty high level women in the division. So there's still value and there's still growth in a loss, but she wasn't a 5-fight losing streak going into.
That losing streak that she had, it seems like it's in days past. She just seems like to turn the corner. And, when fighters say that they want to turn the corner and get back on the right track and go for a career title shot, you always feel like, all right, that's bullshit. That's just media speak. But she's actually backed it up, man. I mean, there's been a couple of sketchy spots along the way here up into this fight, and she's cashed. So, I mean, I think. Well,
Herring, though, man, honestly, it was one of those retirement fights, and she barely even showed up in the cage. It was really bad, like really, really bad. And then the other fight, I would say, I think it was it Bueno Silva? Let me look quickly, because she did. That was where she really had a good showing, and it was like, oh shit, like is there a resurgence of Carolina for sure? I'm with you on that.
I think it was Silva something, like Silva Suarez or something like that.
Yeah, it was. It was Gomez Suarez, sorry. But yeah, so that was a good performance by her there. But then even in the last one, Demopoulos is just there to be hit, man. She looks crazy and chaotic in the cage and makes it entertainment, but it seems like she's closer than she is, but she just gets picked apart. So should be definitely interesting. Obviously it is the Homer hat play, and that's what everybody loves to fade it or back it up. But at the same time, I fully get the hesitancy, because I think it is going to be a closely contested bout. And with that spread play being so shocky, I'm just going to stick with the plus money on the dog. But that was not the dog play of the week. We did look at Alex Morono. I wanted to get your thoughts on that fight. Joaquin Buckley, although I backed him, and I think going down this weight class is definitely going to benefit him. My only real concern is just with the line being where it was a decent value even when it first opened. I know it started to move a little bit, but Morono's always in the fight, man. Morono, if it goes to the ground, his jiu-jitsu is going to be far superior. I don't think he's just going to let the takedown happen nice and easy. If Buckley shoots, because he likely will at some point, because what he's going to find is if he doesn't land that big shot early, Morono's just going to march him down. And it's going to definitely be an interesting fight. I just think there's a lot of value on the dog, and we all agreed. But at the same time, I've also backed Buckley quite a bit, and I know that he is lethal with his power. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like Buckley here. I got to grade out a couple more things, make sure weigh-ins look cool and all that. But I like Buckley here a lot in this spot. It just seems like a good stylistic matchup for him. Granted, I think Alex Morono has shown us more at a higher level, and he has the better resume. But the resume doesn't counterpart for, I think, the variables that you can't really account for in this fight. Buckley's going to be hand speed 10 times faster, way more athletic. I think he's going to be able to find, even though like Morono is a good technical striker, I think Buckley has shown the ability to come over against some of these strikers that people like the Impa Kasaganai fight. Like everybody talked about how durable Impa was. He's never been knocked out before. And then Buckley lands the greatest knockout ever in MMA history. Granted, he will never live up to that knockout again, but the UFC seems to still like him. They're still promoting him. Seems like a good spot. I mean, first fight in the main card. Just seems like a Buckley spot here for me. I was actually thinking about parlaying him up this weekend. I like him here a lot in this spot. It just seems like a great.
The one thing I will prohibit you with is his striking leaves holes if he just runs with his hands. He's got to utilize those kicks properly, maintain that distance, and then pick his shots when he wants to. Because if you look at the way he throws his strikes, if he just wants to get into a boxing match, you're going to have a counter from Morono all day long, and timing will beat speed. But I fully get the angle. He could come in and steamroll him with just sort of that power and just come in with big shots. But Morono's shown to be the dog time and time again. So I will definitely go with him. But at the same time, I fully see the love on the Buckley side of it. What's your next spot, brother?
Yeah, I'm going to go with underdog of the night. Touched on it a little bit here. I kind of like Felipe Lins here in this spot here on the money line. The best bets are the ones that you don't want to make, and I think Cody Alaba will be a popular pick this weekend or across the public. But when you run the tape, his blitzing forward come forward style seems like a potential. It seems like the potential to translate to a contender, but I mean, he comes from a wrestling background. He defends takedowns really well, but one asks is how does he lose here? It's the fight IQ at Ian Kudialabi. He's just way too reckless of a fighter in the stand-up and on the ground to lay chalk with him. He's had an unimpressive run in the UFC so far, 6-8-1, being finished in 80% of his losses in the UFC. I mean, Lynn's had a rough start to the promotion coming over from the PFL. But heavyweight just wasn't the division for him in the UFC. He went 0-2 there, but he had a career resurgence at light heavyweight. He's a big boy in there, and I think that's going to help him with the wrestling exchanges in this fight. He's no slouch on the ground himself. He has a jiu-jitsu black belt and very well-rounded game. We saw him in the Praxi fight. He implemented a wrestling game plan where that got him the win with the 4 takedowns, but it was the last fight against Maxime Grisham. What happens when you don't get the takedowns and you're going to have to gut it out for 15 minutes and your option 1 doesn't work? What are you going to do? And he answered the bell versus Maxime Grisham. Well, I don't think Maxime Grisham is that good of a talent. He has good experience, and he's a big motherfucker for light heavyweight, a person that often misses weight at light heavyweight. In reality, he really is a heavyweight. So he showed a lot in that fight. The biggest concern with backing Lins is just some of his career durability concerns. Sometimes he gets flash knocked out. He's been finished by KO, TKO in 4 out of his 5 losses, 3 in the first round. So he just needs to survive round 1 here, and I favor him heavily here in this fight.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think we were with you on the panel for the original podcast because I'm not that I've always backed Lins, but if he fights against somebody who's going to really try to work on those legs, I don't trust the knees because he's had issues with actual surgeries, and that's been why he's been in and out quite a bit. But that's not what Kutalaba's game is going to be. Kutalaba's going to come in and try to throw big overhand rights. He's going to be leaving his chin up there as he enters. And if he gets stuffed even remotely for a little bit, and I think you're right, the size does play a case. It's just gas city all day long, and then poor decisions as soon as he starts to suck wind because he's focused on his cardio and not focused on actually what he should do in the cage. And it happens time and time again. So when you can get plus money with a decent competitor against Ian Cutelaba, it's always a good bet, I think. And it's even a great live bet situation because even if 2 things happen, Cutelaba could go and try to steamroll for the first round and the line could get wider for Lins, or he could go in there and steamroll, and Lins sort of takes over near the end of the round, and you get Lins that is still a moderately okay money line play, but it's likely going to hit because Cutelaba is off a cliff after he goes off a cliff. That's it. He's no coming back from it. So
it's weird. You would think Ian Cutelaba trained in Vegas, fighting in the Apex, that would benefit him, but his fighting style in this particular matchup seems like the cage in the Apex is going to benefit Felipe Lins a little bit, man. He's going to have to take a couple of hard shots, but as long as he takes those couple of hard shots clean and can stay out of the way, I think I favor him here to win this fight, man. It seems like a fight that is off on the price tag wise. I think it should be at least a -125 pick 'em either way, or a -110 pick 'em, and it's not. That's not the price tag that we see.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that one. I think that there's value on Lins, and I think that's, like I said, when you get even a remotely decent competitor that's going to maybe outlast Cutelaba, it's at plus money. It's always a venture you may want to look at. because he really is a fade in that scenario just because
Yeah, I would bet
time and
this
time again.
line up into minus 105. So one of the things that we always talk about in the betting community, especially in UFC, is what is the right price of the get in, or what's the price that you stop? Do you stop when the line flips? Do you stop? I think this line should be minus 115, minus 105. So that's the way I would line it, and I would feel comfortable betting up until minus 105 for Felipe Lins. Minus 110 would be my, all right, we got to chill.
And then if you were to look at some of the other spots on the card, Alexander Hernandez and Bill Algeo, I know that Nick came in with Algeo as a spot, and I fully actually get it. The only thing that concerns me, I was looking at maybe Algeo by decision. I could see him just sort of outworking a decision. But initially I was thinking submission might be there, but Hernandez does typically start to gas when someone pushes the pressure on him. And that's not really what Algeo likely will do. He'll likely sort of lull him into his game. And I don't know, what's your take on that one? If you have any spots, or if you think there's value in the dog.
I actually like Alex Hernandez here. It seems like his frame and his body size. I mean, with Alex Hernandez, you always got to wait for him to hit the weigh-ins on Friday before you can even make a play on it, regardless of the closing line value. You want to see him hit the scale and look like he's not depleted and completely death gas. But I mean, if you looked at Alex Hernandez and you never saw a UFC fight before, and you saw that he fought at 145, you would think he would be a top 10 fighter in the division. But then once you get to know the sport, and you'd be like, maybe he's not that good. But he's been in some tough competition spots. I think this is a good matchmaking fight. Bill Algeo is more of a come along as the fight goes along, and Alex Hernandez is more of a fast starter. But Alex Hernandez showed a little wrinkle in his game the last time out against Jim Miller. He showed that he could put together 15 minutes of cardio, and he won that fight from just outlasting Jim Miller, just taking the better shots of Jim Miller, and really just outclassing the vet. Maybe that's the veteran spot that gets him going in confidence-wise, because it seemed like he would just death gas after 5 minutes. Does that come in the back of my head to kind of haunt me a little bit from back in Alex Hernandez in the past? Yeah, it does. So I don't know if I'm going to get to the betting window with it, but if I did have to get to the betting window with it, I think it's dog or pass Alex Hernandez, KO or decision.
So you do see some value in the dog, fair enough. And I think that really does come down to him maintaining that tank. If he can do that well, and Algeo doesn't really push it, it makes him a little bit more dangerous later with the power in his hands that he does possess. And if he can run a proper top-heavy game in his wrestling, he's got to be careful when he's on top as well, too, because Algeo is dangerous.
Yeah, and then another thing to add is, like, if you think about pre-flop betting is basically based off of what's going to happen in the first round. Why do you think Joe Bodybags fight versus minus 400? Because he's probably going to win the first round or something like that. And that's a lot of the win condition of the opponent. But if you look at this fight, I think this fight could be flipped after the first round. Granted, could Alex Hernandez blow the live line as a favorite? Yeah, I definitely think he could. He's done it before in the past. But I think the reason why it's dog or pass is because I think Alex Hernandez is going to be a favorite after round one.
Fair enough. And any other spots you think that you wanted to touch on, or are we good for the week?
Good for the week for the most part. Only other spot that would potentially eye up here is I love my girl Vanessa Demopoulos, but seems like a Kanako Murata spot here. Japanese grappler versus former stripper turned jiu-jitsu artist. Give me the Japanese grappler. Seems like a theme in the promotion right now that they've been trying to push these Japanese fighters. Kind of like Murata is a sneaky parlay piece here at minus 390. There's some chalk favorites on this card. Got Drew Dober, Grant Dawson, Joe Pyfer, and Murata kind of sneaks in there. I think she could make some things work for long parlays this weekend.
It's not bad as like maybe even like an earlier prelim or earlier part of the card two-piece. If you wanted to have like a two-piece hit early, have her and somebody else, where the next one up the line would be.
I don't like the prelims on this card at all. From a bet.
If you look at Demopoulos, I mean, all that she has to really do to beat Demopoulos is just literally not play into the chaos that she creates. She creates chaos and it looks good to the judges. She just needs to not buy into that and implement her game plan, let Demopoulos tire herself out a little bit, and then take over completely. So
yeah, Demopoulos is a gamer, so she's not going to go out easy. But I just don't You say past the victories. I just don't see it for you this weekend.
And then the last one I do actually want to hear, if you do have any kind of a take, Nate Maness, who's quite known pretty well on the TKO scene in Montreal. He was up here back in the day and was on a decent win streak up until, more recently. I know he's been off for a little bit, but going up against a guy who's virtually unproven in Mendonca at plus 200, I told you that plus 200 or north. I mean, Nick was on it. I'm not really making it a play, but it's definitely, I wanted to see if you see value in the dog there.
So from a line perspective, this is like a first glance. Yeah, I kind of lean towards, there's some value here at Nate, man. It's big dog money here. And fighting a dude that's pretty unproven. He's fought Dagestanians of recent, so shit's going to happen like that. But the other counterpart is next week, Tuesday's the last week of the Dana White Contender Series. We're in the month of October. 2 more months left in the year. Motherfuckers are getting cut. This is a cut card. It's in the Apex. It's not a. If Nate Maness got cut, which do I think would I be more surprised in seeing? Nate Maness being cut on Sunday morning, or Nate Maness with the interview after a finish on Sunday morning? I would be more surprised with the finish than him getting cut. Cup fight here for Nate Maness. Unfortunate because got a bad draw these last couple of fights, but I just think he gets. I think he gets finished here, man. He gets cut.
He has shown a little bit of durability issues in the past, but we shall see. It's for me usually the hardest part for somebody unproven is just what they're like under the lights, and some people prove us wrong as they do come up. But yeah, I think there is some value in the dog, but not enough for me to really make it a play or go to the window on it. But I've been sort of back and forth on that one. But you maybe just talked me off a little bit, which is okay. You don't need to be on every spot.
It just seems like he's cut, man. The writing just all over.
And that could play into a banger bust. Maybe look to an under. Maybe he sort of knows that and goes all in. So whether he gets the benefit of the banger bust approach or the latter, we'll see. All right, brother. I really appreciate your time. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, I am Calumn McGregor. Tune into the Donttap Podcast.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Style. Tune into the Donttap Podcast.
Donttap
Podcast.
John Jones. Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Calumn McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number 1 rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
That's like saying the rankings are bullshit.
motherfucker from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
For this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. No, we're good. See, he's a pro.